Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. He's a research consultant with Cool Justice, LLC, teaches news writing and investigative reporting at the University of New Haven, an author, along with Louis Colavecchio and Fran Dusky of You Thought It Was More, New Adventures of the World's Greatest Counterfeiter. He covered the Boston Marathon bombing trial, was an editor, publisher with the Winstead Citizen, a research consultant on the HBO series Allen vs. Farrow, a veteran journalist and private investigator. Let's welcome in Andy Thibault. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be with you here, Tommy. Thanks a lot.
You bet. We're going to talk about a guy in Louis the Coin. I was been privileged to read the book. I love the book. It's coming out here in this month of June that this show is airing. But let me start here, Andy. Louis the Coin earned a degree in business administration from Providence College. He had a love of learning and was a genius who made authentic imitations, including counterfeit slot tokens and chips. Got the craft from his father. He eclipsed, from what I can understand, 3 to 4 million from casinos across the country and lived a life of fast cars, women, jewelry, and cash. How did you learn about Louis the Coin?
I learned about Louis the Coin from a guy who's become a friend of mine, Jerry Longo, who's a retired Connecticut State Police detective. And he had arrested Louis when Jerry was stationed at, I forget, Foxwoods End or Mohegan Sun State Police. And he treated Louis very kindly. And then Louis sent him a Christmas card, and Jerry had never made friends with any other criminal, but over a period of time, they became friends. So I forget when it was, around 2005 or something like that, maybe a year or two earlier. Jerry had told me, under the radar about Louis. And I wrote a column about his case for the Connecticut Law Tribune. And Louis's wife at the time saw it online, like law.com or whatever it was back then. And then at some point I get a call from Louis. Oh, my wife told me to call you, blah, blah, blah. I have a manuscript. So then they came to my house and we talked. And then I called my friend Franz Dusky, the poet and author, who has a great poem about Ted Williams, and he has another one called I Wish I Was My Wife So I Could Be Married to Me. So he's got a diverse range in his poetry. So we hung out with Louis and we worked on it for, I don't know, many years, like 8 or 10 years. And we got a decent but not a great editing job between Franz and me. And then we got ready in the first draft, and what's being published now is an updated version.
What did you think of Louis?
Well, he's just a fun guy to be with, unless you had a beef with him or something. He's not like a pacifist, but he got by on his creativity, such that he trained as a con man and a street robber as a teenager in the Patriarca family in Providence. He would sell fake cashmere sweaters to Irish mobsters at bars in Massachusetts. So he had some very serious training as a young man in the life of the lawless under the umbrella of Raymond Patriarca and organized crime in the nation and throughout the world.
You mentioned his attachment and friends that were made men. Louis was not a made man, but from what you know, did he want to be a made guy?
No, he was just talent, such that he was part of the inner circle with Raymond Patriarca, and that's not like a big circle. You know, they would hang out at a certain bar with a vending machine company, different locations, and we would be sitting around with different hitmen, some of whom would end up killing each other for violating rules of who they could fraternize with within their group.
From what I found in the book, he worked at Sherwood Manufacturing and was exposed to the world of gambling at the S&S bar that housed a bookmaking operation and drug business. And then, as you said, he began by selling fake luxury brand sweaters. He stole money from Catholics and sent rosaries for donations. I mean, this when you start to understand who this guy is, this is funny, but some people may not find this funny, but this is what he did. And he owned a car dealership and did loan frauds to purchase luxury sports cars from Italy.
Yeah. Well, having been to Catholic school, I can especially appreciate his exploits. But he would get like a drunken, destitute, deranged priest and get him to sign the authenticity of the rosaries. And then he recreated the Pietà for the New York World's Fair. And he actually had a meeting with some clergy in Manhattan, I think, and he said they were, the roughest cutthroats he had ever met with. So then he just disregarded them and told people the Pope approved this little statuette, and that was one of the things he did.
What do you know about his fraud business and getting luxury cars in Italy?
My knowledge of his car dealer exploits are pretty spotty, except he did get busted going like 156 miles an hour on some highway or Route 95 in Providence, and was on the 6 o'clock news. And then late that night, the police chief from a small town came over and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we had to give you a ticket." but he did. He owned a Lamborghini dealership, and he bought cars in Italy, and he bought jewelry in Italy.
As the book says, he's the world's greatest counterfeiter con man. He could create duplicates or create anything from precious metals or stones. But to make chips or casino tokens, you need equipment. Where did Louis get this equipment to duplicate these casino chips?
Well, he got a 150-ton press imported from Italy, sent to his, if it was a residence or a building he rented, which was not far from a police station. And then he had like tool and die makers, but he would literally re-engineer the chips. He'd have them analyzed and order all the materials from different places in the country. And one place was in Meriden, Connecticut, directly across from the State Police Intelligence Unit at the time, where you had to get some of his raw materials because you need the right weight, components, color, percentages, elements I don't even understand, but he recreated them such that detectives could not tell they were counterfeit under a microscope.
His masterpiece took 4 years to perfect, with coins for 36 casinos. And you said that they were undetectable under a microscope by detectives. So these chips were master counterfeits. When he got one done, do you know like when the first time he tried it to see if it would work?
I don't. There's an overriding element that's been bothering me for a while. Like with Louis, I never pushed him much beyond what he had written, and I keep on going back hundreds of times, and I learned something new each time. And, oh, why didn't I ask him this? Why didn't I ask him that? Not that he would give up anything he didn't feel like giving up. He brought home a lot of money.
Yes, he did. And he used these coins in Las Vegas, Laughlin, Atlantic City, and tribal casinos in Connecticut. The state of Nevada, where I'm in at, didn't want to admit, but they were hit hard. Andy, do you know what casinos Louis the Coin hit out here?
Well, I'd be shocked if he didn't hit the dunes. He writes about the dunes quite extensively, and how that was bankrolled by the Providence office, which means, Raymond Patriarca, the Providence office, the boss of New England. So the guy Louis knew, Bobby Rosati from Providence, who ran the dunes, would tremble and get sick whenever he saw Louis or those guys, because they would just take advantage of everything and everybody. So for Louis, it was a great time. I just know he had quantities like 100, 150 pounds of tokens shipped to Las Vegas that were documented. Where they all went, I don't know, but it wasn't just Las Vegas. He had a theme that he was like a tax collector, but he didn't want to hit people too hard. So he would only hit a casino for $100,000 at a time, so they wouldn't notice. I mean, that was his, I don't know, a business plan, I guess.
Did the money go to the crime families, or did he keep it?
Well, the cops all tell me that if it didn't go to the crime family, Louis wouldn't have lived that long. But he never disclosed to me, except when he was up or down. He was up or down a lot. And, he lived life on the edge for a very long time. It could take a lot to be on the edge for weeks, months, years, but, he did it for decades.
He was eventually caught by a huge surplus of inventories at these casinos of his own counterfeits. And then detectives from Las Vegas and New Jersey and Connecticut all took their turns from arresting him. How did he eventually get caught? Like, what casino do you know that go, wait a minute, we got a problem here?
I know it was in Atlantic City, and the New Jersey detectives still keep in touch with Jerry, the retired Connecticut detective, but they had at some point learned that he would dress, in a wig, and he would always go with the same girlfriend. And then he started frequenting $100 slots where there were more cameras. So that's how they nailed him. They nailed him at the $100 slots in Atlantic City.
Yeah, I understand it was at Caesar's Palace on December of 1996. And then his car had 750 pounds of counterfeit tokens, a fake police ID or disguises, a handgun, maps of casinos, and casino documents. So, Andy, I mean, this guy went through lengths to get this master counterfeit scheme going. I can see how you get maps of casinos, but I'm curious if you might even know, what casino documents did he have in the trunk that he was using?
I think layouts, like you'd often have layouts of businesses. And I'm sorry, I don't know that, but Jerry would definitely know that. And Jerry has an exhibit at the Connecticut State Police Museum of some of Louis' tools and his tokens that he was able to salvage once the investigation had concluded. Yeah, Jerry's the guy for that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know his car had a 3/4 piece of plywood under a rug in the trunk of his Honda to handle the weight of all this stuff.
He was so proud, yeah. Louis was so proud that he could outfit his car to take the load of those, I don't know, was it 100, 150 pounds or whatever?
Yeah,
And
it said 750 pounds. Maybe it was 150.
oh, 750. Well, and then when the feds or whoever took it away, Louis took great pleasure when they got caught on their speed bumps and messed up their car.
The government had to rent 2 storage facilities to store everything. You said Jerry has a collection of some of the stuff.
Yes.
Whatever happened to the rest of it? They just get discarded?
Well, he had equipment, which we have photos of, like 6 or 8 machines that I have photos of, where I don't understand what each one's for, but one of them is when they're all done, this bangs it around a little bit, to make it look like it was used. But it's a pretty intricate multi-level process, and those were all auctioned in Rhode Island many years ago.
Did he keep some of the coins too, Jerry?
Yeah, some of the coins are at the museum.
I'll put a link in the show notes to the museum so people can check it out.
Yeah, I'll get a link for the museum to you.
After he was arrested, was he kept or did they let him go? I mean, how did that all work?
He was arrested in Atlantic City, and he had, like, his lawyer in Rhode Island, who represented him in Atlantic City, was a former Rhode Island Attorney General, Jimmy O'Neill. I don't know if Louis was held for a day or two. I'm sorry, I should know, but I don't. But then Jerry had friends in Connecticut, including a guy who's still around, and Jerry's Jimmy O'Neill's still around, but Mel Scott in Connecticut represented Louis, and he just got concurrent sentences in Connecticut for what the feds nailed him for, or what they agreed to in New Jersey. So he did 2 years at Fort Dix.
I'm surprised there's not a traveling Louis the Coin exhibit, especially like here at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas.
Well, we're like number 800 in line or something. I met with Jeff Schumacher several years ago, and we shook hands that he thought it was a good story, and, it's a big line.
You own a bar? How about a restaurant? Or maybe just a venue? Looking for a business or a corporate idea for your organization? I got it. Trivia. Stardust Media Trivia, that is. It's trivia on steroids. It's more than trivia. You have to experience it to understand it. It's an event. It's trivia, brand new, 2.0. Let's talk. Check the show notes, or you can email me beforethelightspod@gmail.com. Yeah, there needs to be something for people to kind of see the coins and see the equipment might be too big to move, but if they did it once every in a while, then maybe it's worth making the move. But I would think what all this guy did, there should be some kind of exhibit.
Yeah. Well, he was both a scientist and an artist and a con man and a businessman. He had quite a few layers of personalities and talents.
It took investigators weeks to determine the fakes. Did he finally just admit they were fakes? Or how did they find out if they were so masterfully done? How would they find out these were not real?
I don't know if they got better microscopes or they sent them to labs, and New Jersey and Connecticut worked together on this. But it took another level of study to determine the difference beyond the microscope. I don't know what the science was.
I understand he made a deal with Mohegan Sun and then showed them how he did it. And the U.S. Mint hired him after his release because his dies were better than the government's.
Right. Louis, as part of his plea deal, 2 years at Fort Dix, which he called the best 2 years of his life, that he would tell him how he did everything. And then he was hired, I don't know if he made like $20,000 from the U.S. Mint as a consultant, just telling them how he did what he did and how his dyes were put together and lasted longer.
Is it possible some of his fakes are still in operation?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of casinos got rid of the tokens. Not all of them, but quite a bit in the years following, when his case was pleaded out. But when he got to Fort Dix, he was greeted by a guy who was a special forces sergeant, also an inmate. And the guy says to him, "You thought it was more," which meant, "Hey, I'm from the Providence office," or "You're from the Providence office," which was Raymond. So right when he walked in, he got like better soap and towels or whatever. And then he ultimately moved progressively to better quarters, to the air quote suite occupied by the guys from the Pizza Connection. So they had like full course meals and wine and whatever.
I love this part of the book, and people, you have to get your hands on the book. It's available in hardcover and Kindle pre-order right now at louisthecoinbook.com, on Amazon, Walmart, and Barnes & Noble. I'll put a link to the show notes to that as well, but you really need to read this book. It is hysterical. I was laughing reading this book, but he had to pay $90,000 in restitution as part of his plea agreement. It was $75 a month, was on a suspended release 3 years, and he didn't begin paying until 4 months into his 3-year period. He only paid $2,400 total of the $90K. His suspended release was dismissed early, and Louis the Coin got a refund back because the court said they considered him paid in full for the month before and sent him back $75. I mean, that is classic of a counterfeiter to actually get money back, only pay $2,400 of a $90,000 restitution agreement.
Everything Louis could get away with in court, he almost got away with everything,
He claimed he and Judge Ann Thompson had chemistry between them and that they should date. I mean,
yeah. He's been love struck a number of times in his career, but he might have been the only time he tried to bust a move on a federal judge.
In 1997, he was given a 7-year suspended sentence for larceny of casino coins, and in 1998 in Rhode Island was caught stealing $100,000 from his 92-year-old aunt and was handed a 54-month suspended sentence. In 2006 was given a 1-year suspended sentence for resisting arrest. I mean, Louis he couldn't stay out of trouble, could he, Andy?
No, but then he seemed to have an effective excuse when he got busted for cocaine while on probation, when he told the court, and he was like maybe 76 or I forget what, that he only used coke for sex. And he walked on that.
He walked from it?
Yeah. It's Rhode Island. It's federal court, though, I guess.
He conned the court system. He's conned everybody in his life.
Yeah, well, he was smooth and entertaining,
Louis died on July 6, 2020 in Rhode Island after was given a compassionate release from federal prison with Alzheimer's at the age of 78, where he was serving time for counterfeiting $100 bills. So he went from casino tokens and coins to $100 bills. How good were these bills?
Well, they worked for a while, but the feds had informants against him. And he cooked up about 40 grand of hundreds in his toaster in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And then he had been in failing health for quite some time. I didn't know how serious it was. He complained about everything from Guillain-Barré syndrome to all kinds of problems. And he was really in no shape to go back into prison when he did. So it was pretty much a death sentence when he went back in. I was able to talk to him a couple times. He was scared and out of it. And a couple weeks before he died, they let him out to go to his daughters in Cranston, Rhode Island. And so Louis buried in Cranston, Rhode Island.
He was always trying to think one step ahead. If he had gotten caught with the $100 bills, he had a defense plan that he was working as a counterfeit deterrence specialist.
Yeah, well, he might have slipped a little in his sophistication there, but that's the way he did things.
Was he also in trouble with bank and mortgage and insurance fraud stuff too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had to push a Porsche off a cliff once and didn't go down deep enough in a little pool of water. So he had a problem there. But I think he solved it with a fire or something. He told me how they got good food in prison. There was one guard who was a real hard ass about people taking too many sweet and lows. So this one guy took about 50 of them and then punched the guard, and all the guards were jumping on that guy. And all Louis' crew marched into the kitchen, the freezer, and took all the good stuff, back to their hideout.
So his entire life then was a criminal venture. It was one thing after another.
Yeah, from start to finish. But when he his final months, days, and year or so in Butner, he was a nobody there, and he was the big fish, big guy at Fort Dix. So
when you were talking to him, Andy, was he pretty straightforward that he wasn't a saint, or did he try and cover it up?
Oh, I mean, he would give a rosy picture to anything, but, he admits to getting physical in an abusive manner in sections of the book when somebody cheated him, and, in a sociopathic way, no conscience about it or anything. So that wasn't his main activity, but he wasn't above it,
Was it his actions that always got him in trouble, or did his mouth get him in trouble as well?
For all his stated lowball in the casinos, he might have had a little hubris. I mean, he clearly did, hanging out, doing the $100 tokens so much in Atlantic City, and, putting on a dress and a wig with the same girlfriend. Probably not the smoothest diversionary tactic.
I mean, Louis the Coin, the story has gotten so popular. There's a screenplay called Coin Man. There's poems about Louis the Coin. There's songs about Louis the Coin. There's been so much written about him that I was shocked when I dove into it. Do you know where this screenplay is? Is there any possible movement of getting this to screen?
Well, my friend, a fellow newspaper editor, John Cullen, who writes under the pen name Jack Chaucer, has written a few screenplays. And, we realize screenplays can get hundreds of drafts and go nowhere, but we're open to collaborations on that because we're above our head on that. But if I may, I'd like to thank Histria, Histria Books of Las Vegas for publishing the hardcover. It's supposed to hit the street June 18th. And, Joe Broadmeadow, retired of East Providence PD, has an overview of organized crime in Rhode Island and Louis' place in it, Raymond's place in the national and international scene. And of course, there's an intro by Jerry Longo, retired Connecticut State Police Detective Sergeant, who now runs security at Mohegan Sun. Jerry wrote the intro. And Franz Dusky has been with me from start to now, and we're all looking forward to hanging out and having a good time once it comes out.
How long has this book been in progress?
Well, this version's been just like about a year and a half, but the initial, the beginning of it, Louis' manuscript, I think we first saw around 2005 or 6 or 7, I forget, something like that.
June 18th, it comes out where you can buy it, but they can pre-order the Kindle, the hard book before then. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
LouisTheCoinBook.com.
And that's where we got all those videos of the poem and the song. And thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, you are welcome. What do you miss most about Louis the Coin?
Well, I just miss hanging out with him. I would invite him to a lot of literary events, and he even spoke at a free speech rally for a high school student, I believe in 2007 or thereabouts, at the Litchfield Inn in Connecticut. And he had gone to events at the Hartford Club, where there's a good photo of him and Jerry there, I think from 2010. So when you hang out with a friend who's a funny guy, which is how I think of Louis, you almost always have a good time. And he invited me, he was banned by certified mail from every casino in the US. And then I went to the Twin Rivers in Rhode Island, and who invites us to the VIP room but Louis, with another buddy of mine. So it was like free food and booze and nice. And one of the boxers that night was named Tiger Boletto. And he's like a grandson of Tiger Boletto, who was one of Louis' contemporaries in the Patriarcha family and played a major role in family business. I'll just say for now.
So a guy lived a life of fast cars, like I said, women, jewelry, cash, that goes from luxury brand sweaters to rosaries to Italian cars to casino coins to $100 bills to even stealing from his aunt. I mean, the guy, one spectrum to the other.
Well, he also made silencers, for guns, and he made machines that could beat Ma Bell nickel, dime, quarter by pushing buttons, which he sold a lot of those.
Unbelievable. Well, Andy, thank you for your time. Thank you for sending me all the material to research this and read it. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. Listeners, I highly recommend you get your hands on it. You will enjoy this read. I promise you, you will. Andy and Louis and Franz have done a spectacular job in writing this book.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Really appreciate your effort to dig into it.
You are welcome. Listeners, before we go, make sure you do me a favor and rate and review the show. It'll take you 30 seconds at the most to do that. All you have to do is use your phone wherever you're listening to this at and hit 5 stars. Nice comments are always appreciated. That's going to do it for this episode of Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, I salute a chin chin.